Hello, my name is Angela Cox and I am the Mindset Mentor, and this is the Mindset Mentor Meets podcast. Now, my aim is to discover and share the secrets of success. You'll hear engaging and uplifting interviews with business leaders at the top of their game, all primed to deliver bucketfuls of value and inspiration. We'll bring practical tips, success strategies, and golden nuggets of motivation to help you unleash your absolute potential. Now, please do like, share, and leave a review if you love this podcast. It really does help others to find us. Thanks for listening, and let's jump in now and meet this week's fabulous guest. My guest today is Sally Eley. Now, Sally is the director at the City and Guilds Foundation, but she began her early career at P&amp Ferries before moving into PR and communications. These days, she has a real passion for working with organisations with a strong social purpose. Now, we haven't met, so I'm really looking forward to finding out more. Sally, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. How are you today?
I'm really well, Angela, thank you. And yeah, it's a great pleasure to be here.
And of course, we are on lockdown, so we are meeting over technology.
Yeah.
Who knows what might go wrong, but we'll just wait and see.
Yeah, get through it.
Absolutely. We've had dogs barking and doorbells ringing and all manner of things, but it just shows that it's the reality of our current situation. Now, we always start the podcast, Sally, with getting you into the mindset for celebrating your own success. And I like to call it the shake your pom-poms moment, being your own cheerleader. So I'd love it if you would start us off by sharing your 3 proudest moments.
Okay, right. So they're sort of long moments really, but the 3 proudest times in my life, I would say, firstly, when I was 20, I went to France. I did a French degree and I spent a year in France, and I learnt to speak French fluently and realised how much you could achieve if you just put your mind to it. And before that, all through my schooling, I hadn't really thought that you could be good at something. And so I was really proud that I went to France barely being able to speak French and then came back being able to have a chat with anyone. So that was my first. My second one, I would say, is on a more serious note. When I got divorced some 10 years ago, I've got children who were very young at the time. They were 4 and 6. And my proudest moment is the fact that we've managed to be a really good family despite being divorced, and so they live, that's their normal, and it is quite hard because it's not normally like that. So I'm proud that they've still got a family. We've all got a family, albeit an unusual one. And my third proudest moment is that I've managed to do up my project house pretty much on my own, which I never thought I'd be able to do because I had no idea what to do, found it really difficult, but it's nearly there. So I'm proud of that.
Wow, that third one is amazing. So you've actually done all of the work yourself?
Well, I haven't done it all myself, but I've managed to find out how you do. I've got the money for it. I've got the right people, and I've had great people do the work. And before that, I'd always thought, oh God, it's so much hassle. How do you do, you get ripped off, all of that. And I've managed it alongside work and the kids. And it, a lot of people would be able to do that with their eyes shut, but for me that was a big challenge, so I'm proud of it for me.
I love that, and it demonstrates the one that you used at the beginning as well in terms of learning to speak French. And you said, if you put your mind to something, you can make it happen, and you've done that.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I think the one that stands out for me the most is your ability to actually bring together a family that has been split through divorce. And you've told me that you've got teenage daughters now. So you must be like a little team at home, the 3 girls together, and then your ex-husband, I suppose, coming into that. And I think that's pretty inspirational particularly for women who are thinking about career, family, how do you blend the two?
Absolutely.
So can we talk a little bit about more about that in terms of how you manage that?
Well, to be honest, that was one of the things that led to the divorce. Because and I have to say, before I had children and I had them in my sort of mid-30s, I always thought, well, there is equality. I was encouraged to follow my passion for my career. I loved my job. I was doing well. And then I had children, and actually it wasn't easy at all to go back and manage children and a husband and a social life, etc., etc. And that put us under great pressure. And so, and some of that pressure, I think, led to us not being able to continue our relationship. Because I've always prioritized work, feel guilty for even saying that, because I love it. I loved it more than I loved playing games with my kids.
Me too.
Both. I wanted both, and I think it is really hard, because we do want to have it all, but it's actually really, really difficult. And I think it's great to hear inspiring stories of Nicola-holics, for example, who do great things with 5 kids and run the world. But actually, for many of us, it's really, really tough. And so managing to continue with work, bring up a family, keep relationships going, I think is a constant challenge.
I can totally relate to it. It is that feeling of juggling so many balls, and within that then being able to prioritize yourself, let alone your partner and then the kids. There's always this kind of feeling of guilt, and I see this more and more with my clients in terms of, am I able to have it all? Am I being selfish by wanting it all? And the fact that you've been able to do it and do it in a really balanced way is really motivating and inspiring for people. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. And in that, you said, as I've said many times, you love work. You prioritize work, and I can totally understand that. So let's just find out a little bit more about your career, because you started off at P&O and now you're heading up the City and Guilds Foundation. Those two things are quite far removed. So let's have a chat about that.
So I did my French degree, which led me to P&O, because it was, cross-channel ferry company. And I thought, I want to go and work and live in France, because I'd loved it so much. And then, of course, things don't work out how you imagine. I actually ended up getting into marketing and then doing a marketing qualification at Portsmouth University, which then let someone introduce me to someone who ran a small PR company, and I ended up getting a job in a PR company. And then I realized that actually I much preferred the clients that had some kind of charitable or social purpose than those that were purely about profit. So then I wanted to move away from Portsmouth at the time, and I moved up to London, and I worked for a housing association as their head marketing and PR manager. And that was great, because it was a business and a charity combined. So it had to make money, but it put its profits into social good, if you like. And I really, really enjoyed that. So then I went to a head of comms job for a skills organisation, and then I had children. So after that, I then realised I found it too difficult to keep going into. I was working in central London, commuting. I couldn't make it all work. So I thought, right, I'm going to give it a pause. And then I ended up doing projects just for people I'd worked for. And I thought, I could make this into my job. And so I set up a company, and for 10 years, I did so many brilliant, diverse projects, all different things, really opportunistic. I had a plan, didn't follow the plan. I tried to, but again, so often I found that you have to hold these things lightly. You have to have an idea and direction, but be prepared to flex and adapt as your situation changes and circumstances change for you. So I did that for 10 years, and then I got an opportunity to come back into an organisation, to go back to running a team, and that's where I then built up the City and Guilds Foundation, which we launched last year.
And tell us a little bit more about that.
So the foundation is all about the sort of the philanthropic arm of City and Guilds as an organisation. So I'm sure a lot of people will have heard of the brand associated with skills and training and skills development. but it makes money through most of its products and services. The foundation, what it does is it uses some of those profits for philanthropic purposes. So it helps those furthest from the job market get into a job, perhaps ex-offenders or people who've had really tough backgrounds. And it also shines a light through awards and recognition on brilliant training and skills development and where that can lead you. So everything it does amplifies the core purpose of the parent organisation, City and Guilds.
And you head that up, and you head that up with such passion. I can feel it. And I've also got the benefit of seeing you as well, and you're beaming with smiles as you talk about that, and that's lovely to see that connection. Now, you've just said a phrase there which you kind of said just off the cuff, and it kind of hit me just how marvelous it was. And you said, I've learned to hold these things lightly. I mean, that is a meme if ever I've heard one. It's that kind of the idea of the squiggly career and going with it, taking the opportunities and not being too wedded to, the plan that you set out with. I think that, that in a nutshell is a great lesson. And it brings us on, I suppose, to the lessons that you've learned along the way, because I'm sure there have been many with these twists and turns that you've taken. So what are they, and what have you learned as a result?
Okay, so I have learnt that exactly as you say about the squiggly career, it's not, you can't and you shouldn't plan that you're going to just have this upward trajectory that's just a smooth curve. It's very much like a game of snakes and ladders, definitely. And you can't always see what's ahead of you. And despite, I'm quite controlling, I think many people are, and you think you can control your own destiny, and so often you can't. And so what I've learned is that, and it was one of my colleagues who taught me the hold things lightly phrase, which it's so true. When we hold on too rigidly to things, you miss opportunities, you don't realize that you need to flex and adapt in order to be able to benefit more from things you can't necessarily see in the moment. And it's really hard because often you might have put in so much work into something and you can't bear that it's not going to go in the way that you thought. But if you don't let go of that and try and find a new way of doing something, you lose out. And others do too. So, and I would apply that to, say, my marriage situation with my children. I thought, if we don't do something differently, this is just going to get worse and worse. But it doesn't have to be what's painted out there as the norm. We can choose to do things differently, and I believe that in everything. I think whenever you constantly fall over, don't you? I don't believe that anyone doesn't, but it's about how you pick yourself up and how you allow yourself to think, okay, right, what can I do differently? How can I move on from this? How can I let go a bit? And it's really hard. It's a constant practice, but I think that's something I've learned.
And again, that point that you've just made about a marriage, that there is this kind of blueprint, I suppose, for how a marriage should be. And I hear so often people say, I'm not happy with my partner. Actually, that's usually a representation that somebody isn't happy with themselves, but actually we're going to stay together for the sake of the children. Yeah. And then when you dig into that relationship with the person, how they are showing up at home, it must be detrimental for the children, because they're experiencing this conflict, people who aren't fully connected, and actually taking that brave decision to end the relationship and then experience the relationship in a different way for the benefit of the children must be on so many counts more healthy than staying in it.
Well, I get that. I guess that's what I believe. And it is really difficult because everybody's situation is different. But I'm sure for me and my ex-husband and my children, that was the right thing. And we have then had so many benefits from it, many more than I could ever have. Well, we wouldn't have had that if we'd stayed together. And he's a really good friend. I got broken into last year, and he was the first person who came around and helped me. We went to the Isle of Wight Festival last year with the girls. It was great. But then once we get on each other's nerves, it's like, right, okay, you don't have to see you now. Great. And there's no but also bringing up children for anyone is hard. It's tough, isn't it? Being a parent.
Totally.
So I appreciate having that other parent to be able to say, look, how are you managing with this? Because you know what, I'm at the end of my tether, and we have to work really hard at being co-parents in different houses, and clearly people love to share their opinions. Lots of people think it is better to stay together, so you just have to keep evaluating what you're doing and remembering and trying and working. That's my experience anyway. So
that kind of just do you, what's right for you, what's right for your family, and making sure that you're true to that regardless of what the blueprint might say that we should do or ought to do. I love that. That's so good to lean into. And you talked about this idea of working with organisations that have social purpose, and it's clearly a passion, and I can really hear that in what you're saying. But what else drives you to keep going every day, particularly on those days where, you wake up and it feels like it's going to be a slog?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think I've got quite a natural high level of drive, which I've always been grateful for, but I also need people to bring that alive. So with a team, it's easy because I get so much energy from being around other people, and I love to have fun as well. So I love to have, if there's laughter, if something can become silly and jokey, even if it's supposed to be serious, then I'll love that, and that will energize and perhaps help bring other new ideas and thoughts that wouldn't have been there already. When I ran my own business, I would say it was harder because I was so much on my own at home, and so I would then use anybody I could to get that spark and inspiration and idea generation going. So I'd say I use other people. Well, hopefully
In the right way, obviously.
yeah, exactly. God, I'm really manipulative.
And how do you take care of yourself? So, there's this whole kind of ethos for well-being. We talk about meditation and mindfulness and exercise and green smoothies and all of this sort of stuff, but everybody has their own way of taking care. And I'm a big advocate for mental health. So I'm always interested to know about how leaders take care of their mindset and their well-being.
So I think even though I would love to think that I did all the, drank green smoothies, I think I've only been able to swallow one once, and do loads of exercise. I did take up running when I was 46, which I'm really proud of, because I think, you know what, if you can take it up that age, you can take it up at any age. So I do that a couple of times a week generally. I found that really helps work through problems, really helps with mental health. I also find, and I've always found, talking to other people really helpful. There's been times that I've been quite anxious in my life, and talking to others who have empathy and sharing, I definitely do that with people I know will get it, and that's something I would say I do to look after myself. I also I know that other people can lift me, so in the same way for work I need that energy. Sometimes just my friends are really important to me, my family, having fun, taking yourself out of yourself, using humor as well. Humor I find a massive thing that helps your well-being, because if you suddenly see things in a lighter way and you don't take yourself so seriously, and it all feels better. So actually, looking at your own tragedies and making them into comedies, I think is quite a way of taking care of yourself and entertaining other people as well. So
Yeah, it's seeing that light side of the dark, isn't it?
yeah.
And being able to pull that out, and actually it doesn't then feel quite
Yeah.
so bad. But you've just mentioned anxiety there, and I think there are a lot of misconceptions about anxiety and actually what it is. So a question I'm always interested in is how individuals actually do anxiety. So how does that present itself for you? Because it's very different for different people.
That is so true. For me, it becomes obsessive thinking, where in a negative way, where I can't stop a certain train of thoughts.
Yes.
And I am a naturally creative person, which is great for my work. I have ideas all over the place. But on the other hand, if that in anxiety for me can mean that I could catastrophize the worst scenarios, and get stuck in them, and start to believe them, and then that leads to a downward spiral. So I need help to get out of that. And I think that I must have realized that in my early 20s, maybe mid-20s, late 20s, when I had particularly bad anxiety. And it was then I realized how useful talking therapy is, and also how useful friends are. So I've had counselling a few times in my life and found it really helpful. And I'm a really strong advocate for anything like that can, talking is the most important thing, and being someone to you and sharing.
Yeah, and that's what you've just articulated there in terms of those racing thoughts and the rumination on one thing is definitely a common trait when it comes to anxiety, along with things like, the racing heart. And one of the things that I found really effective with clients around that is actually practicing mindfulness. So being able to switch the thoughts from the ruminating thought to being in the moment and paying attention to maybe, a flower that you've just picked from the garden, or feeling the grass underneath your feet, or whatever it might be, such that you're able to stop that racing thought and build resilience in the system to be able to switch thoughts whenever you need to. So that's another way of, as well as reaching out and talking, which is brilliant.
That's so true. And actually, I've got into gardening in the last 5 years since I've moved, and I find that really helpful with mindfulness, not in a proper structured way, but just because the very nature of touching the earth and doing things, basic nature. And I've no idea what I do. I just, I don't follow books. I just mess about and I plant stuff, but I love it and I find it really helps. So no, I think that's very true as well. There are things that can help you with mindfulness. I don't find it so easy just to sit and meditate.
Me neither.
Yeah. And so then that stresses me if I think, oh God, I've got to sit and just not think and, focus on this one thing. Whereas I can find that other things like being outside can really help achieve that, albeit you're not trying to do it. If that makes sense.
Oh, totally. I completely understand when I sit and try and do the meditation and let the thoughts fall away, then I get quite frustrated because I am a busy-minded person, and it feels like you are too. So that kind of purposeful mindfulness, I suppose, or even doing a jigsaw or something like that keeps you occupied, I find that much better too.
I think the worst, if you're stuck in anxiety, I would just think though, sometimes those things, they can't help you because, whereas if it's sort of not too bad, then you can do a jigsaw, or you can potter about outside, or go for a run. But sometimes when it gets acute, that's when, to me, I'll need to have a conversation with someone who I know will be helpful to try and break that cycle. And I think it's something that, the other thing I would say is that it's not something you ever conquer. It's an ongoing work in progress. And I think that's true of all the life lessons. There's nothing I've ever not had to continue to work at always. You think, oh yeah, I've got there, and you haven't. You've just got to keep getting there, keep trying, keep doing things differently. It's, that's how I it.
Absolutely spot on point, because so many people out there are looking for the quick fix. Oh, can you solve this for me? Can you do me some hypnotherapy and stop me from doing this? And there are lots of people out there that believe that is accessible. But I guess in my experience, and you're saying yours too, is that actually it is a constant deliberate practice, in the same way as, if you want to keep your weight at a healthy level, you want to keep your fitness levels, at a decent place such that you can go out for a run, you have to keep working at it. And when you stop, all of these thoughts and feelings can come back and bite you. So I think that's a brilliant point you've made. Thank you. And you're being really vulnerable on this podcast and sharing things that have you faced into adversity, you faced into challenges, and sharing some of your thoughts around anxiety. And it's so refreshing to hear that. And vulnerability is always a question that I ask on the podcast in terms of what does it mean to you, because again, different people have different views. So be interesting to hear your thoughts on vulnerability.
I think it means being able to show how you actually are at any one time. So showing that weakness, the weakness that we all feel in some ways, and not being worried about that, not trying to hide it. And I have to say, I don't find it hard when I feel anxious. I just want help, and I've never found it hard to ask for help. It doesn't mean I don't feel sometimes a bit of self-loathing. I do. I feel like I should be able to be better than this, but actually, come on. But we're all the same in one way. So actually, to me, that vulnerability is to be able to share all of your fears, your worst bits, your weaknesses, and also at the same time your strength and your self-belief and your I will get through this, because I absolutely believe that whatever situation you're in, you'll get through it. There's another way round. Something else will happen. Good times will come again. I really believe that.
And I'm assuming that being able to lean into your own weak spots, or blind spots, as I like to call them, and also knowing your strengths means that you'll be great at surrounding yourself with the right people, the ones that can bolster the things that perhaps you're not so good at. So in terms of that, what are the traits that you look for in other people when you're building a team or even a friendship group?
Oh, that's interesting. So I look for positive attitudes. So people who are willing to try things, people who are willing to expand their mindsets and not think around something, not just this is my skills and experience, so that's what I've put on the table. I'm much more interested in if you're really keen and willing to do something and you've got an open mind. Those are the things, and you want to do that as part of a team. You want to be in it together. Those things are all what I look for in my friends and in my work teams. So yeah.
Love that. You make me smile out loud. I'm just beaming, smiling all the way through this podcast. Now we're at the time in the podcast where we play the game, the 5-second game rule. And if you've listened to the podcast, you'll know all about this. This is where you need to give me 3 answers to a question, and you have 5 seconds to give me the 3 answers. So it's all quick fire, pressure's on.
Yeah.
But you've got this. I know you have. So, are you ready?
Yes.
Marvellous. So, in the 5-second game rule, can you give me 3 things that make you feel happy?
Sunshine, wine, friends.
I love the wine. Loads of people say the wine.
I should have come first. The truth is that drinking on my own in the sun. Nice. Sorry.
Drinking in the sunshine with friends, not on lockdown, obviously. And let's do another one. So in the 5-second game rule, can you give me 3 words to describe you?
Funny, open-minded, a bit obsessive.
Oh, the last one's joyous. Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So let's go to the big killer question. So this is the one that everybody is keen to understand. And so far we have had so many diverse answers. So I think it's always worth asking. The ultimate question is, what do you believe is the secret to success?
I believe that it is, going back to some things I've said before, all about being open-minded and willing to always look again at a situation and find new ways of achieving things or getting around a problem. So it's about being as broad-minded but with a clear goal in mind.
Okay, so having that kind of outcome where you want to get to, but not being too wedded to the way to get there.
All of my things that I've done over my life so far, they've never gone according to a plan that I've set. I put lots of time into planning. I'm not, I'm not against it. I just think that if you're not willing and quick to adapt when you need to in any situation, then you won't be successful. So
going back to your point of holding things lightly.
Yeah, exactly. Holding things lightly, but having it all as a plan and being that conductor, just
Oh,
keeping check on everything, and then, pulling in some strengths when you need them, pushing back others, looking ahead, being able to see ahead, but then, as I said, being able to flex and adapt as you get into the actual future, not the one that you had in your mind.
oh, amazing. And I wish people could see you right now, because your hands are going all over the place as you tell me this amazing story. It's brilliant. You're so alive. You're just so full of energy and joy. And I really hope that it's come across through the audio as much as it has me watching you, because, I said at the beginning, we've never met. So you were introduced to me by a good friend, Polly. And I feel like I've known you forever
Oh,
already.
yeah, so do I could go on chatting and chatting, so that's very good. You're like, right, okay, bring it in now.
It's been an absolute joy, and I just know that we will chat again. So
Oh,
thank you for all of your honesty and your openness, and for sharing some of the more personal aspects of your journey, as well as obviously the work-based and professional-based ones. I always think it's a really balanced and effective way of telling this story about the different questions that we ask. So I can't thank you enough.
well, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I've loved it, and thank you very much.
I do hope that you enjoyed listening to the Mindset Mentor Meets podcast. If you did, be sure to check out the show notes to access all of those important links. For more about me, visit my website at www.angela-cox.co.uk. Now, I'd really love it if you could subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode, and do leave us a 5-star review, because it really helps us to get noticed. Bye for now. I do hope that you'll tune in next week, and take good care.